Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling unsettled, not because someone yelled, threatened, or acted out, but because everything seemed just a little too perfect? They were calm, polite, in control, maybe even generous, but beneath their warm smile and flawless manners, something didn't sit right, something you couldn't name at the time, but that still lingers in your gut. What if the greatest dangers we face in people don't come from those who are openly hostile, unkind, or loud, but from those who are emotionally silent, perfectly composed, and utterly convinced they're good? That's what we're going to explore in today's video. A deep psychological dive into why the most dangerous traits in people aren't always visible, and how they often hide beneath the mask of moral certainty, unshakable self-image, and quiet emotional control. And by the end, you might not just look at others differently, but yourself as well. Let's begin with a simple truth. No one shows the world their full self. We all wear masks, social faces we carefully craft to function, to be accepted, to be loved. We learn early what gets approval and what doesn't. So we play roles. We filter what we say. We package ourselves. But beneath that polished surface lives something deeper, a side of us that isn't always pleasant, appropriate, or easy to understand. Thoughts we dismiss, feelings we suppress, impulses we deny. This hidden self doesn't vanish, it just goes underground, and the more we ignore it, the more it begins to shape our lives in secret. From the outside, it might look like control. Someone who never raises their voice, who always seems rational, who handles everything with poise. But inside, there may be chaos they've never dared to face, emotions they've labeled as wrong, desires they've convinced themselves they don't have. Over time, this creates an internal tension, a growing split between the image we maintain and the parts we repress. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can keep it down for a while, but eventually it's going to burst through the surface. And it won't be gentle when it does. People who bury anger often become passive-aggressive. Those who deny envy may undermine others in subtle ways. People who suppress fear often become controlling. And those who disown their sadness, they may become emotionally unavailable or addicted to constant productivity to avoid stillness. This is how our hidden parts start to leak into the world. Not directly, but through patterns, symptoms, and behaviors we don't connect to their true origin. Here's the paradox. What we repress most often shapes us the most. We think we've outgrown our insecurities, tamed our impulses, transcended our flaws. But the truth is, the parts of us we refuse to confront are the ones that operate from the shadows. That inner aggression we deny doesn't go away. It gets channeled into sharp comments, silent punishments, or a cold emotional distance. Our buried need for control turns into micromanaging, perfectionism, or disguised manipulation. Even our need to be liked can morph into subtle dishonesty, saying what others want to hear, never setting boundaries, avoiding discomfort. Repression doesn't make us harmless, it makes us unpredictable. Because when people don't see their own potential to harm, they lose the ability to notice when they're doing it. And here lies the most dangerous illusion, the belief that we are good, always good. You've likely met someone like this. They never admit wrongdoing, they never seem to lose their temper, they speak in calm tones, often couching harshness in the language of care. They're the first to call others out, but the last to reflect on their own behavior. This isn't about being kind or virtuous. It's about identifying so strongly with an image of goodness that any hint of personal flaw feels like a threat to one's very identity. People who believe they are entirely righteous are rarely capable of deep self-reflection. They don't question their motives. They don't consider the unintended harm they may cause. And worst of all, they often feel justified in their control, judgment, or cruelty, because to them, it's coming from a place of virtue. This is how moral certainty becomes moral blindness. We live in a world obsessed with image, curated social profiles, spiritual influencers, hustle culture heroes, everyone showing their best self, rarely showing their real self. But the problem with perfection is that it leaves no room for contradiction, and without contradiction there can be no growth. The moment someone insists they are always kind, always fair, always composed, they have stopped evolving. Because evolution begins with awareness of what we are not. We don't become wiser by polishing our image. We become wiser by getting closer to what we've been avoiding, by listening to our anger, understanding our fear, owning our darker impulses. Not acting on them blindly, but not pretending they aren't there. When someone refuses to face the parts of themselves they dislike, those parts don't go away. Instead, they take over in indirect ways. Relationships start to crumble, not from overt betrayal, but from subtle dishonesty. Friendships dissolve, not from open conflict, but from avoidance and resentment. Teams break down, not from shouting matches, but from icy silences, unspoken competition, and masked manipulation. It's the slow erosion of trust, the quiet pain of being around someone who's always nice, yet never really open, the confusion of feeling dismissed, judged, or controlled by someone who claims to be just trying to help. And when you finally step away, you feel like you've escaped a fog. Only then do you realize the toll of dealing with someone who never truly acknowledged their own complexity. It's not darkness that makes a person dangerous, it's the denial of it. People who know their flaws, who see their inner contradictions and confront them, are often the most trustworthy. Because they've wrestled with their own shadows, they don't pretend to be perfect, and because of that, they don't need to pretend with you. But those who disown their shadow, those who think they're incapable of selfishness, deceit, cruelty, or control, they are the ones most likely to harm you, without even realizing they're doing it, and they'll walk away thinking they did everything right. So how can you tell when someone is truly self-aware, and when they're just playing a role? Here are a few signs to watch for. They never apologize, or if they do, it's performative. They frame concern as control and judgment as care. They don't handle feedback well. They constantly reference their own values, but rarely reflect on how they live them. They avoid emotional depth or weaponize it. They seem nice, but you always feel slightly less than after spending time with them. These aren't absolute red flags, but they are indicators of someone who may be disconnected from their own inner world, and therefore unpredictable in yours. Real self-development isn't about adding more light. It's about bringing light into dark places. This means sitting with discomfort. It means being willing to see ourselves not just as we wish to be, but as we truly are. It means asking, what parts of me have I pushed away? What emotions do I avoid? What do I judge in others that I haven't owned in myself? And more importantly, how might I be harming others in ways I haven't admitted? This isn't a path for the faint of heart, but it is the path to becoming someone who doesn't just look good, but who does less harm. We often talk about knowing ourselves, as though it's a destination, as though once we've journaled enough, meditated enough, or endured enough heartbreak, we've arrived at some final understanding of who we are. But true self-knowledge isn't static. It's not a trophy you earn, it's a relationship, one that evolves and deepens over time. The self isn't just the version of you that exists when everything is going well. It's not just the part that shows up to work on time. keeps promises, and says all the right things. It's also the part that shows up when you're tired, cornered, or emotionally bruised. The real question isn't who am I when I'm at my best. It's who am I when I don't get what I want? Who am I when I'm rejected, ignored, or unseen? Who am I when no one is watching? Those moments, those private, unfiltered ones, are where the truth lives. And if you avoid looking at those parts of yourself, not because you're bad, but because they make you uncomfortable, you'll never truly know who you are. In personal growth spaces, there's a common fantasy, the idea that we can one day become fully healed, fully centered, fully enlightened. We imagine a version of ourselves who never gets angry, never feels threatened, never says the wrong thing. This version floats through life calmly, wisely, untouchably. But here's the catch. This ideal self doesn't actually exist. It's just another mask, one that's especially seductive, because it makes us feel superior to those still visibly struggling. Ironically, the more someone clings to that enlightened persona, the more disconnected they become from their real emotions. They smile when they're furious. They say it's all love when they're seething with jealousy or pain. They talk about acceptance, yet silently judge everyone who isn't as evolved. Spiritual bypassing, that's what this is often called. It's when self-development becomes a way to avoid, rather than engage with, the uncomfortable parts of life. Real growth doesn't make you superhuman, it makes you more human. There's a quiet strength in vulnerability, though most people misunderstand it. Vulnerability doesn't mean dumping your feelings onto others or oversharing in the name of being real. It means being honest with yourself first. It means saying, I'm not okay today, and I don't need to pretend I am. It's easier to put on a show to act kind, balanced, and unbothered. What's harder is to sit with your own discomfort without numbing it, running from it, or blaming someone else for it. People who are deeply self-aware don't chase perfection. They chase honesty. They're not afraid of their contradictions. They explore them. They don't need to dominate conversations. They ask better questions. This kind of vulnerability makes relationships safer, communication cleaner, and emotional environments less tense. Because when someone owns their mess, you don't have to guess what they're hiding. Let's return to the core theme. Danger doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and one of the most dangerous psychological defenses is denial. It's not just denial of obvious truths. It's denial of internal truths. Feelings we think we're above. Thoughts we think we've outgrown. Patterns we think only exist in others. Denial is quiet, but it's not harmless. A person in denial of their own envy may sabotage others subtly while congratulating them to their face. A person who denies their need for control may disguise it as being helpful. Someone who can't admit they're lonely may seek connection in ways that are emotionally manipulative or passive-aggressive. What makes this dangerous is not the behavior itself, but the fact that the person doing it believes they're justified, even noble. They believe they're the victim of other people's shortcomings, when they're actually being driven by the parts of themselves they won't look at. The more unconscious a person is of their inner world, the more unpredictable they become. Not because they're evil, but because they're unintegrated. There's a particular kind of person who always seems sure they're right, sure they know what others should do, sure their world view is the correct one. This certainty can be intoxicating, especially when paired with intelligence, charisma, or confidence, but it's also dangerous because certainty often replaces curiosity, and curiosity is the lifeblood of wisdom. When someone can no longer say, I might be wrong, or I haven't thought of it that way, they begin to operate not from awareness, but from ego, and ego, when threatened, lashes out, not always with aggression, but with silence, manipulation, or condescension. You can spot this in debates, in relationships, in leadership roles. The person who must be right will twist logic, cherry-pick facts, or subtly punish those who disagree. They'll frame their dominance as confidence and your doubt as weakness. But real strength doesn't need to silence opposition. It can hold space for ambiguity. Let's talk about something that confuses a lot of people. Being nice is not the same as being kind. Niceness is often performative. It's about maintaining harmony at all costs, even if it means suppressing truth. Kindness, on the other hand, involves risk. It's being honest even when it's uncomfortable. It's having boundaries. It's saying no without guilt and yes without resentment. People who pride themselves on being nice often avoid conflict, not because they're peaceful, but because they fear disapproval. They smile when they're hurt. They apologize when they're angry. They pretend to agree when they don't. Over time, this builds resentment toward themselves and toward others. And when that resentment leaks out, it does so in confusing ways. Passive comments, withdrawal, sudden emotional outbursts that seem to come from nowhere. These are not signs of evil. They're signs of someone who hasn't learned how to be honest with their own emotions. Every emotion we refuse to feel becomes a distortion. Unfelt grief becomes numbness. Unfelt anger becomes bitterness. Unfelt fear becomes control. Unfelt shame becomes projection. The body remembers what the mind avoids. It stores tension, patterns, memories. And eventually, if we don't listen, it forces us to through anxiety, burnout, chronic dissatisfaction, or even illness. You don't have to act on every emotion, but you do have to feel them. To feel is not to be weak, it's to be whole. And if someone cannot feel or refuses to, they become hollow in a very specific way, pleasant on the outside, but unreachable at the core. You can curate an image. You can't fake integrity. Image is what people think of you. Integrity is what you are when no one's watching. The world often rewards image, how you look, how you speak, how well you follow the script. But real relationships, real leadership, and real self-respect are built on integrity. Integrity is uncomfortable. It requires self-confrontation. It demands that you own your contradictions, apologize sincerely, and stand for something, even when it costs you approval. People who rely on image are always exhausted because they have to maintain it, but people who live with integrity, they can rest because they're not performing. You've probably felt it before, but maybe you didn't have words for it. That rare moment when you're with someone and you feel safe, not just physically, emotionally, energetically. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to shrink or puff up. That feeling, it usually comes from someone who has met their own shadow, who isn't trying to impress you, who doesn't need you to be anything other than yourself. These people are rare, but when you meet one, you remember. Because the safety they bring is real, not performative, not fragile, not based on image. It's built from having done the deep, messy, ongoing work of self-awareness. So what do we do with all of this? First, we stop searching for danger in obvious places. It's not always in loud anger, or broken promises, or flashy deceit. Sometimes it's in the subtle control, the spiritual superiority, the chronic niceness, the polished persona that hides too much. Second, we look inward, not just once, over and over, because the deeper you go into your own psyche, the more clearly you see others. You stop projecting, you stop idealizing. You stop needing people to be what they're not. And third, we let go of the idea that self-awareness is a destination. It's not. It's a daily practice. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest. So the next time you feel that subtle unease around someone, the kind you can't explain, don't ignore it, and when you feel a similar discomfort within yourself, don't suppress it, lean in, look deeper. That's where the truth is.